this is from the Dyke Project, a collective of cis, trans, and non-binary lesbians, and they unleashed a series of surreal disruptions at a trans exclusionary lecture. So there's like this tradition in LGBT and queer activism of treating the whole thing as a like clown show, or treating the whole like opposition to us as a clown show, because one, it is all made up and ridiculous and they're all pompous losers, but also because it's a form of non-violent protest, and it like they're always constantly looking, ever since the start of the gay rights movement, have been trying to pose LGBT people as violent, dangerous. That's where they want to take away our rights. So if you turn up and do something like throw a custard pie in someone's face or turn up with a foghorn or whatever, it's clear that you're not violent. So anyway, this article is great. I will try and put the link in the description. So this is from someone who went along to document the events because they got the heads up. It is just a good article. You would expect to see clowns at any trans exclusionary event on and off stage. But a panel discussion at University College London took a surreal turn last night when members of the Dyke Project unleashed a wave of disruptions. That's a good start. Congratulations to whoever wrote this. So they were having a gender critical event, and all of the speakers, including author and journalist Julie Bindel, are vocal and avowed gender critical feminists. And several have previously argued that trans people pose a threat to their identity as lesbians. So the Dyke Project are a bunch of lesbians who are sick of that bullshit, and they're turning up to interrupt. So they say here, trans people are an integral part of our community and always have been. Adding, lesbians are more supportive of trans rights than any other demographic where the issue is polled, as I was saying earlier. The real threat is people like those on the panel who are using the banners of feminism and lesbianism to promote conservative values and align themselves with the far right. Absolutely amazing statement. This is the kind of thing we need to see more of. Like, we need to see more of. This intro is absolutely incredible and is obviously written by someone who supports trans rights. We need more of that, but we're not getting more of that. Like, whoever this person is, great. I'm glad you managed to get this through your censors. Or maybe your editors are good. But what we do need more of is good, strong, like, saying exactly where we're staying, like, saying exactly what's going on, like, very clearly. Like, they're using these things to promote something which is completely at odds with them. Call it out. Say exactly what it is. Don't play their games. And I'm not saying that there's no one doing this and I'm the only person saying anything. Not at all. I just think we need so much of this that it's like overwhelming and it changes the narrative. This kind of thing is great. But yeah, so they went down to see what was going on. So it was, to me anyway, pretty easy to guess who was a Dyke Project member and who was a regular attendee, simply because they looked much younger and cooler. There is absolutely, I mean, I know we were just in an earlier section looking at the world's first cis-only lesbian bar or whatever, and the person who organised that, I presume it's like my age. But most, like, there's a strong age thing going on here where, I mean, it's the same with every civil rights movement. The opposition to it is generally the older generation, and that's just how the world works. And people who are more likely to support civil rights movements are more likely to be the younger generation, and like every generation has its battle, and congratulations, our one is trans rights. Says the disruption unfolded in 4 waves not long after the talk began. 4 different types of disruption, like amazing. Trans Kids Deserve Better did that amazing disruption where they like released a load of crickets into the LGBT Alliance conference. That's great. I really also like this idea of continuous disruptions, because when you have one disruption, like the talk I did, had one gender critical protest in the middle. Then we just kind of moved on. If you have like 4 in a row, that is fucking annoying. That is so. It's more like one disruption in the middle is like an interlude. 4 disruptions, that's a disruption. So whoever planned this, incredible. The disruption unfolded in 4 waves. Not long after the talk began, someone stood up and started shouting a short speech, followed by their fellow activists unveiling a banner which read, "Lesbians against the EHRC." Yes, mate! This is so good. I'm loving this. The room erupted into a chorus of groans and jeers. One woman ripped away their banner, veins bulging in fury, and screamed, "Get out! Get out!" as the activists were escorted out. A former member of parliament heckled, "Your boyfriends are waiting for you outside." Oh, I wonder who it could be. Joanna Cherry, maybe. I don't know for sure, probably, because who else could it be? A little snide, like, in my opinion, could be perceived to be by some bystanders, I live in the UK, a homophobic comment. We got a video here. Let's watch this video. Incredible. Absolutely loving this lady with the clown nose on. So good. Incredible. So that was one of the disruptions. After 10 minutes, the clowns arrived. So this is the second disruption. Bearing juggling balls, clown noses, and kazoos, they cavorted and pranced around the room, chanting, "You're not feminist, you're all clowns." True! Another incredible interruption. The reaction was even more hostile this time, and it would be safe to say that most of the attendees didn't find it funny. One of them screamed, "You're a pathetic cunt," at a clown. Okay, right. I think generally the gender criticals aren't very good at humour, because all their humour is just about how they're superior to trans people. It's like the classic thing of why right-wing comedy isn't funny is because they're punching down and it's not funny, and why left-wing comedy is more funny because they're punching up. Like a classic. There's a whole debate online. Anyway, this is a good one-liner, okay? As this subsided, the speaker on stage quipped, "Is that what you call a second wave? Hopefully there isn't a third wave." Foreshadowing. But also, the reason why this is a good quote is because the second wave of feminism is kind of what gender critical tries to latch on to, and the third wave of feminism is kind of what arguably is where like intersexual feminism and trans rights inclusive feminism has come from, although they both have deeper histories than that, and it's a bit more complicated than that. Generally, the like radical feminists of the second wave of feminism don't like the third wave feminists, or some of them don't, because they don't think it's a good wave of feminism. And there's like a anti-trans blog called Fourth Wave now, like saying that they don't like the third wave of feminism, they did a new wave. So this is a good relevant joke, and I thought, I didn't laugh, but I was like, that's a good one. I'd applaud that one. Top 5 gender critical jokes of all time. Anyway, unfortunately for her, why does it keep going up when I select it? Fuck off. Unfortunately for her, there was. After waiting long enough to lull the room into a full sense of security, activists clad in sportswear started running around, blowing whistles and throwing out red cards. This stunt was intended to highlight the exclusionary effect the Supreme Court judgment is already having on trans people in sports, such as the FA's decision to ban trans women from participating in football. Um, this is so good, incredible. Just wonder, like, how many of the seats at the end of this were empty? Like, was it like half the people there were people lying in wait with some novelty item? Like, you're part of the whistle team, you're part of the clown team, you're part of the banner team. Like, banner team, go, go, go. Incredible. They must have had so much fun pulling this off. See, protests can be funny and fun as well. And this bit is just incredible. This is like someone scripted this part from like the heavens, have created this thing that's just so ironic. It's incredible. The atmosphere in the room had by now descended into a fog of paranoia. Who could be trusted? One gender-critical woman suggested that everyone in the audience turn to the person next to them and ask what they were doing there, and if they weren't satisfied with the answer, demand they leave. Incredible. Like, are you here to learn about why trans people are subhuman, or are you gonna put on a fucking clown nose? Oh, just amazing. The idea that I just love this idea where they don't know who there is like pro-trans rights or not, and they don't know who they probably all, like, a classic gender critical thing is to say that all women who protest in favor of trans rights are themselves trans, which isn't true. But I can so imagine them thinking all of these women who have been kicked out are actually trans women. And the idea that, like, look to the left, look to the right, make sure no one there is trans. Incredible. Another tried to preemptively chuck someone out because they looked suspicious. I thought this was because they were young, which would have been funny, but a Dyke Project member later told me it was because they looked like they might be trans. But they weren't. So they actually did do this. So, like what I was just saying, the gender criticals assumed that all of the protests were from trans people, even though they weren't. And then they picked a random gender critical person and said, you look trans, and tried to throw them out. Could there be a better metaphor for how fucking stupid and dangerous for women the gender critical movement is than women protesting against them, and in response, them picking a random person on their side and declaring that they are a man and that they should get out? It's like it's scripted. It's like perfection. Of course, they will have no epiphanies here, no realization, no self-awareness. A lone voice of reason in the audience cried out, "We're not going to do an age-based witch hunt." The lecture proceeded uninterrupted for another 10 minutes, and I was forced to listen to a very dry, legalistic account of why people should be allowed to exclude trans people using the evidence of their eyes alone. After that, they just picked a random person and tried to kick him out. And that's a quote. Fucking hell. Just, the gender critical movement is so like the classic line, high on your own supply. They've bought into their own stupid propaganda so much, and they've existed in a political and media world where they've had no scrutiny or pushback of any kind. And so they think, like, their dry legal minds are saying, oh yeah, just anyone who looks trans, you should just be able to kick them out. It's just incredible that this has been able to stand. And like, they just, when the trans rights movement is under a lot of pressure from all different angles. And so our arguments are constantly having to be refined and like precision chiseled. They have to be like, sharp weapons of war, basically. You have to be able to say your arguments so concisely and precisely, and they have to be fact-checked and perfectly formulated and everything. It's like the strongest form of survival of the fittest in terms of arguments. The gender criticals don't have any pressure at all because it doesn't matter what they say. So they'll say something like this, and this is what they've been saying. Like, we've been saying the only way that you can police who's trans or not is to randomly accuse people of being trans. We've been saying that's what the gender critical position would lead to for 10 years plus. And they were denying it, and now they're just saying it out loud because they've faced no pressure to like improve their quality of argument. Anyway, When a fourth wave of disruptions finally came, I gave up trying to be subtle and stood up to photograph the last banner, which read, "Trans liberation equals women's liberation." True. Once again, the room erupted into chaos. One of the attendees began following an activist around, waving a brown coat in front of her in an apparent effort to shield her from the view and silence her message. It's like, don't look, children! Loads of gender critical people in the room were snapping away and filming the events as they unfolded, but one woman got up in my face and started shouting at me, "Stop taking photos of her," despite the fact my camera wasn't pointing in her direction, and, as an organizer later confirmed to me, there was no policy against photography. A security guard pushed me aside and wouldn't let me back in to get my bag, simply because I was doing my job and exercising my democratic rights as a member of the press, spluttering, "I'm a journalist," is so goated. Or millennial or younger reveal when getting thrown out of an evil event is the vibe. This is more than just a panel discussion for us explaining why the Dyke Project chose to target this particular event. We want to disrupt it because it's a symbol of the threat which these people in power have. Their biological essentialist values and gender rigidity will roll back hard-won feminist victories from abortion access to queer rights. One of the scheduled speakers was Akka Reindorf, who we've recently covered on this channel. She's the one who said that she works for the EHRC and she wants to make it to change the law so that trans-inclusive organizations are impossible. She is a full-on anti-trans extremist. She also threatened to sue people for describing her positions. So we'll see. Yeah, so, it's the same people. It's always the same people at these talks. It's their, set of powerful people who want to ruin trans people's lives. The idea that the EHRC is neutral is a fallacy, and I think this event proves that. And then we've got an explanation of what the Dyke Project is. Right, okay, yeah, here. So, tonight's protest was intended to be campy and fun, which they see as being in keeping with a proud tradition of queer activism, including groups like the Lavender Menace, ACT UP, and the Lesbian Avengers, who abseiled into the House of Parliament to protest Section 28. We're proud that we're doing something which speaks to history and stands on the shoulders of the queer people before us who have pushed back against the right-wing agendas. But it's not all fun and games. We also can't underestimate the severity of this. Trans people are facing more and more violence every day. They're being excluded from society and pushed into the margins as a matter of policy. She expects... Mate, this is just such a good message. Absolutely massive shout out to this group. So good. And to this media organisation for actually covering it. She expects the women appearing in today's panel will complain about being silenced, but she rejects the narrative. The reality is they have immense power and influence, and in contrast, not a single trans person was consulted in the Supreme Court judgment. They only heard from exclusionary groups. We refuse that exclusionary narrative. This action is about showing who lesbians really are. Slam dunk. Amazing finish. Incredible protest. Good article. I did just basically read out 3/4 of it, but you should go and read it because it's well written and you should give them some support, give them some clicks. But yeah, massive, hats off to the Lesbian Project. Oh no, not the Lesbian Project. God, sorry, that's Julie Bindle's one. The Dyke Project. Too many projects. Hats off to the Dyke Project. Get fucked to the Lesbian Project. Got to be super confusing for any... It's a little bit the Judean People's Front versus the People's Front of Judea, but it's pretty clear what the sides are here. One group get paid to protest against the rights of trans people and lie about lesbian people, and the other group are a group of actual lesbian people who are fighting for everyone's rights. So there's no confusing them once you see them in action or see what they stand for. Just when you read their names quickly off the screen. Yeah, shout out to them. Well done. More of that. If you're in a group, this is the kind of protest we need. Non-violent, disruptive, attention grabbing, direct action protests. Don't break the law.